Welcome back to Area DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and today we're going to do 10 more spooky games for the Nintendo Switch. Ooh. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm okay. Anyways, this has been the year of COVIDity. It's been the year of scary, scary things. Whatever. Anyways, let's go over what we did last time. Last year I did 10 spooky games for 2019. And this list is not going to have any of the same games. So I'm going to go ahead and recap what the last games were. Number 10 on that list was Hotline Miami. Number 9, What Remains of Edith Finch. Number 8, Hellblade, Setsuna's Sacrifice. Number 7, The Untitled Goose Game. Number 6, Limbo. Number 5, Raging Loop. Number 4, Crawl. Number 3, Arms. Number 2, Resident Evil Revelations. And number 1, Yomawari Night Alone. Those were the games that we did last year. This list, however, will contain none of those games. So, a brand new list of 10 for 2020. And let's just get right. Wait, before we go into this, make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And let's get right into it. Or something. I'm not going to bite other people's lines. Number 10 on our Halloween related 10 spooky games in no real particular order, although I do have one specifically that's my top this list. So, we're going to start with, well, I think we'll start out with something sweet like candy. And we're talking about Syrup and the Ultimate Sweet. Because what better game to have on your Halloween spooky list than a game about candy? Or rather, a kind of prejudiced um, candy maker and some enchanted candy and some candy that comes to life. And then there's things that happen in it. It's a little, visual novel game with multiple choices, multiple endings. And it's a cute little sweet treat that I definitely recommend people check out. It's one of those ones where I'm like, this is kind of silly. Let's see if it's any good. And then I got into it and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. And it was. So, number 10 on our list is Syrup and the Ultimate Sweet, which, yeah, it's pretty sweet and you should definitely go check it out. Why? Well, because I said so, and I'm running out of candy puns here. Well, actually, I'll never run out of candy puns, but I do want to mention that this game, nice and cheap, really a pretty good experience. And most of the visual novels on the Nintendo Switch are, I like this game. In fact, I even support the creator a little bit more by buying like a sticker that they made off of I think Etsy or something. Yeah. Or was it T? No, I think it was Redbubble. I don't remember which one it was. But I ordered a sticker for this game because I thought, no, I liked it. It was fun. I got through it pretty quickly. But still, it was worth it. It was worth playing. It's one of those games where you see them on PCs, they're on Steam, they end up in your Steam list, and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. That's kind of how the Switch is. And you end up with all this stuff on your Steam list, essentially, on the Switch. And then you're like, well, is this any good? And Syrup in the Ultimate Suite is good. So check it out. It's number 10 on the list because it's not spoopy, but it doesn't really have to be. It's just fun. And it's a little Yuri. So there's also that. Yup. Anywho, Syrup and the Ultimate Sweet is number 10 on this list. Number 9 on our list is a fantastic game, one of the best games in terms of Metroidvanias, and an interesting game if you're not afraid of bugs and lore. So, this is Hollow Knight. I know that there's a sequel to it, Silk Song. Hopefully that'll come out in 2020. We still have a little bit of time, but if it gets pushed back to 2020, just finish it. I just want a release date. If you have to push it back to 2021, just let us know. But I'm so looking forward to the sequel to this. But Hollow Knight is a Metroidvania with a lot of neat little special things to it. It's pretty darn good. And it's a brilliant game. It's also really atmospheric. And it's got some genuinely horrifying monsters in there. You know what I'm talking about. The primal aspids. Yeah. But yeah, take up your nail and take into well, yeah, pretty much play this game. It's good. Hollow Knight, there's not much else I can say here, just it's a nice atmospheric game with some really weirdly disturbing lore to it as you fight against the Radiance or the Grim Troop or all these other things. And yeah, it's good. It's a little tough, and I was stuck in one area in this game for like months. And I was like, what do I do? Hmm. And then I look up the boss, right? I'm like, there's got to be some strategy here. And people are like, yeah, I use this item and this item. And I'm like, I don't have those items. Oh, I'm not supposed to be here yet. So, yeah, it's kind of open worldy and you can definitely sequence break, but you don't want to because you'll get your butt handed to you by many of the bosses. And I'm like, oh, so this boss here is one of the most difficult bosses in the game. They recommend you have this level of weapon. I have the first level of this weapon, and they're saying I should have the third level. Oh, God. Oh. Great game though, really great game. So then I went and started wandering through and I'm like, nah, there's so much stuff in here. And if you don't think it's spooky or scary, you've never been through the path of pain. Anyways, Hollow Knight is number 9 on this list. What could be further? Why would things be further than Hollow Knight? Well, I'm just going for stuff that's kind of spooky. Not just atmospheric spooky and challenge spooky. So there's going to be some monsters on here after all. So let's get on to number 8. Now, number 8 on this list is one that I recently played, and it just kind of stuck with me that I'm like, wow, this is really underrated. Now, I've actually seen it pop up on a couple other people's Halloween lists, and I'm like, really? But the game I'm talking about is Perception. Now, Perception is a game that, well, you kind of use kind of like Daredevil-esque stuff. It's all dark. The main character is supposed to be blind, but by tapping their cane elsewhere around them, they'll be able to get like a little perception essentially of the area around them. Now, the way the game is put together, it's the main character goes back to this house and there's some type of secret there. There's ghosts, etc., etc. It's got multiple different things to it. So if you want to, you can turn it into kind of a combat less experience, making it a little similar to like Gone Home or What Remains of Edith Finch. Or you can make the creatures a little bit more aggressive, making it similar to like Outlast 2, or Amnesia, whatever the second one was called. But yeah, you won't find Outlast or Amnesia on this list because I'm pretty much just going through games that I played through here, and I might save those for a later list. But yeah, Perception is number 8 on our list of the top 10 creepy games that are on the Nintendo Switch in 2020. Well, I mean, none of these were like a lot of these weren't released in 2020. Some of them were, but you know how that is. So, yeah, Perception's on the list because it is quite good in terms of story and in terms of spooky stuff happening. Also, the way it uses its central conceit, the basic perception ability, kind of like Daredevil in that's what I've always thought was kind of funny. In the comic books, Daredevil, because he loses his sight due to that chemical accident, has heightened other perceptions. So you've got a guy who's like, yeah, your superpower is that you're kind of athletic and you're a blind person who can see. So, yeah, there's kind of a big problem with the Defenders, anyways. But we won't get into that. God, what they did to Iron Fist and Power Man. Why have they massacred my boy? Oh well. At least Kingpin was interesting this time around. Unlike what they do with Kingpin in let's get back. Let's get away from Marvel. We're talking about Perception. It's number 8 on this list, and let's keep going forward to see what number 7 will be. Number 7 on our list is Creepy Tale. Now, to be perfectly honest, when I was playing this one for a gaming paraphilia earlier, it was kind of frustrating. Part of that was really kind of frustrating. I was like, why doesn't this work this way? And then I went ahead and checked online. And I'm like, okay. So they really do want me to go ahead and do that. There's some really long, frustrating parts of this game, but it's on this list, which, by the way, most the order from like 10 all the way to 2 is kind of random-ish, random-y, but one that's the first one on the list is there because I feel it's more it's kind of like how Yomawari the Night Alone last year was number 1 on that list because frankly it deserved to be there. So I would say the same about the one that's number 1 on this list. But let's get back to Creepy Tale, or as I've sometimes called it Spooky Tale, which I think I did also in the gaming paraphilia for this one earlier. Yeah. Anyways, after I stopped playing it on the video thing, I went through and completed it, and it was definitely worth it. It's a very short game. Some of the puzzles are a little bit obscure. There's like a little chess puzzle one later on where you have to look for something in the background. It is very much a puzzle platform adventure game, and I really liked how horribly disturbing the actual premise when you get down to near the end of it is. Kind of similar to other games where you're going through there and you're like, that can't really be what this is about. And then you're like, oh yeah, that is what this is about. I won't spoil it. I think the way it looks is pretty great. I do like the fact that the creatures that you have to avoid for the most part look like the stupid rat things from the comic book Bone. Sorry, the stupid rat creatures from there. That's what they kind of look like. Just a little, like a cross between those and the creatures from Where the Wild Things Are, but like the Spike Jones version of that, which is actually more about the existential horror of being a kid, which is, I always thought that was kind of funny in there. Like the main character's just terrified that because like someone like the teacher in school told him the sun's gonna burn out. And though so after telling the monsters on the island that, or rather in their little area that, they just the sun doesn't rise when they expect it to, and they all revolt against him. Spoilers for that one. Sorry about that, but you should have already seen it anyways. Anywho, Creepy Tale. It's a good game. It's like $5 or something on the Switch. Definitely worth checking out. Um, like a lot of the games on here, many of these ones are kind of cheap. Some of them were sent by the companies that made them, and we always make sure to disclose that. But most of these were like, oh, that is 50 cents today. I will try that. And hey, the Switch pretty much is like a console version of Steam these days. But yeah, check out Creepy Tale, not a Creepy Tale, just Creepy Tale. You think there'd be an A there. But yeah, check out Creepy Tale. Totally worth your time. I was pleasantly surprised with the places that it took. There was a couple parts that were frustrating, but ultimately it was a very fun little game. I liked it, and that's why it's on this list. So let's get down to what is this one? I think this is number 7. Yes, let's get down. Don't hold your breath for number 6. Number 6 on our spooky list is They Breathe. Yeah, I know, Maya. I know. They Breathe. They Breathe is a game about a frog, I think. A frog diving below to the ruins of society. And I played it in a gaming paraphilia, and I beat it in that same gaming paraphilia. And I thought, this is actually pretty good. Then I went back and played it with like headphones and better synced sound because I was playing it through like little headphones on here and you're recording. There's like that little delay, and playing it with those, I was just like, yeah, This is short, but oh so sweet. This is a pretty good game. And I honestly think that, hey, um, please, if you decide you want to watch the video I have of it, I beat the game in that video, and I sorely regret that because I feel like this is a game that you should go and beat yourself. Like, go and play this yourself. You'll like it too. That's why it's number 6 on my list. And you know what? It's a it deserves to be on this list. I was completely surprised by it. I was just like, what's this? No, this is fun. It makes me happy for those types of weird experimental games. We're on we're at a spot here in the Nintendo Switch life cycle where they could be like, here is Frog Fractions, and I would be like, cool, finally, thank you. But yeah, They Breathe was fun. I recommend it. It's cheaper than, like, I don't know, a cup of coffee or something, but it's definitely worth it. Play it. It's like a horrible version of Flow. No, actually, I wish there was something like, I mean, I wish Flow were not a PlayStation exclusive type thing, but no, They Breathe is pretty good. I liked it. It's pretty affecting, pretty tense in spots, and you should play it. That's why it's on my list. Yes, go play it. It's spooky. Number 5 on the list is a little game called Bioshock 2. Now, Bioshock, Bioshock 2, and Bioshock Infinite, while Infinite kind of revels in its own little politics, Bioshock and Bioshock 2 are straight up horror. I'm choosing Bioshock 2 as the representative for Bioshock in this one because that was Bioshock 2 is more focused on, well, the degrading of the of Rapture. Bioshock 1 is incredible. Bioshock 2 is so very underrated. I like the mechanics and the drill better. There's just so much stuff that I like that was done a bit better in Bioshock 2 because they refined the formula. I like playing as the technical monster from the first game, and I liked that it was, well, it was a little bit spookier. It was more unique that way. BioShock Infinite has its spooky moments. I mean, gah, you know the ones I'm talking about. You know the one part with the things and the yeah, with the you know what I mean. And oh, some genuinely horrible parts where you're just like, oh no, no, I don't like that at all. There are parts in BioShock Infinite that are like that. BioShock 2, though, is a nice blend of those. BioShock Infinite feels a little bit too cynical, and I'm hoping that for the next BioShock, like BioShock 4, that they don't have the same writer as BioShock Infinite. I know that's kind of blasphemy to say, but sometimes you need to extract the main creator from a franchise if they've gone off the deep end, which is what should have happened with Neil Druckmann. They should have taken him off that project instead of the lady that he fired, who was one of the better designers that was on The Last of Us 1 and then wasn't on The Last of Us 2. They just let Neil Druckmann do whatever he wanted and it turned out bad. Anyways, BioShock 2 though, a different team disconnected from it. They took like the idea of BioShock, like, hey, let's go into here, mess around with this formula, and let's emphasize more of the horror. Because a lot of Bioshock is body horror, and Bioshock 2 is a refinement of that. And I still like it. Out of the three, I still think Bioshock has the best story. Bioshock Infinite has some of the best science concepts to it and an interesting setting, but there's never a songbird battle, and it just kind of like it just it just messes up so badly. But BioShock 2 is that nice little blend of horror from the first game. It's just a really good addendum to it, and I kind of feel like I get what they're going for with Infinite, but if someone were like Bioshock 4 is going to take you back into Rapture, I'd be like, okay, I'm okay with this. I don't need to go back to Columbia. I mean, it all begins, and ends in Rapture, right? Right? But no, Bioshock 2 is on here because I really like it. And it's spooky. And you get to be the monster. You get to be the monster, the misunderstood Frankenstein of it all. And I feel that there's something beautiful and poetic about that. Because one thing that I like about horror movies is the misunderstood monster or the unknowable monster. The thing where things are not what they seem to be, and that's fine. You know? And BioShock 2 kind of fancies that, it takes the concepts from the first game, switches them to the other side of the political spectrum, and then lets you play as the proverbial monsters that you had to deal with in the first game. And I think it works out well. It's nice. Yeah. So anyways, BioShock 2, it's number 5 on this list. And now on to number 4. And here we are on number 4. And it's a side-scrolling game. Similar to how Limbo was on our list last year, I have to put Inmost on it this year. Inmost is a great game. Really interesting stuff. I was really pleasantly surprised by this game. And I think you should buy this game, especially if you're a fan of, well, cosmic horror, sort of, or horror mysteries, or where things aren't quite what they seem to be, or puzzle based platforming. So think kind of like, I mean, there's some spots where you have to think fast in here and maneuver fast, but overall, Inmost was, quite frankly, one of the little surprises. Now, this was almost switched over this was almost taken by Carry On, which is going to be kind of an honorable mention. I definitely think people should play that one. I really liked it, but I played Carry On the Xbox One. I didn't play it on the Switch. At some point, I will pick it up on the Switch, so it might be on another list somewhere down the way. But since these are 10 spooky games to play on the Switch, Inmost is here. So, Inmost, it's pretty good. It's a spooky good time, and I think you're going to like it. So, there we go. That's why Inmost is on this list. I know it's number 4. Now, my upcoming 3, I've got them in a particular order, and I will justify that order. So, let's get to it. So, here we are. You know what? Horror is a really tough genre to put together. I mean, anyone can make a game where, like, fast food puppets or whatnot jump out at you, or you can make loud noises, and then suddenly people are like, "Oh no, I'm scared." But no, it takes genuinely good games to give you a sense of terror and dread, and that is why Catherine Full Body Edition for the Nintendo Switch is here at number 3. Because hey, three heroines or so, I don't know. Several nights. This game is pleasantly uncomfortable, and it's still good. I got this from Sega, right? They sent me this one, and I'm like, thank you. I'm playing through it. It's pretty good. And then I also got the physical version because I pre-ordered it. I'm like, yeah, this is worth owning both digitally and physically. Sometimes that happens. Like WayForward sends me a bunch of stuff, and then I get it physically as well. So like, yup. I just love it. This is a good game. The narrative is interesting. It's a very mature game too. I mean, you can kind of like set it to a nice low difficulty and deal with the story and your choices and all the different endings that can pursue from that can happen from those. Or you can pump up the difficulty and tackle those little towers. It reminds me of a demented version of well, Nintendo would put out something called Pushmo, where you're trying to like climb an area by moving specific types of blocks and get to the top or get to a flag in that area. And since there's no Pushmo on the Switch yet, it's kind of nice to see this game on the Switch. I want to thank Sega and Atlas for putting together a fantastic little narrative game. Um, some of the stuff in this game is truly disturbing in a society kind of way. If you've seen that one, I think it's like High Society. I mean, there are some Cronenberg style monsters in here where you're just like, oh, that's nasty. And a little sexy. Yeah, this is I mean, love is dead. This is a relationship horror story, and that's fine with me. So that's why Catherine Full Body is number 3 on this list. So let's get ready to get into number 2. And here we are at number 2 on this list, and there is a lot of number 2 in this game. It is The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth. Now, The Binding of Isaac is a roguelike shooter from the guy that brought you Super Meat Boy and Mugenics and oh, what was it? End of the World or something like that. He made a bunch of different games. He's taking forever on Super Meat Boy Forever. And I'm like, come on, man. Anyways, you got to look at it this way. The Binding of Isaac is a story of religious fundamentalism, or is it? It's got some I like how kind of gleefully offensive the game can be, with a lot of its just horrible, horrific implications of the enemies and things. I mean, ugh. Basic idea is that the main character jumps down a cellar door that was hidden in their room. Of course, it's not really what happened, but that's all kind of like in the imagination of a very messed up little boy. Um, so pretty much you're wandering naked around these randomly generated tombs or sarcophagi or whatever, these catacombs, right? And in these catacombs, you find all sorts of messed up power ups to make you because you're battling stuff with tears. You're you're a naked abused child using your own tears to fight back the demonic hordes of hell and heaven in in a quest to get to commit matricide. Yeah, yeah, that's The Binding of Isaac. Loosely based off an idea from the Bible, like somebody maybe heard the story and thought that's kind of messed up. I'm gonna do this, and you go and you're like, yeah, I know. The guy that made this is one of those little is a certified fedora wearing atheist type person. You know those types of people. But the game is quite brilliant. It's gross, but it's quite brilliant. Lots of interesting roguelike stuff in there. And if you like shooters, this becomes like you're filling stuff up with like tons of bullets or you're dodging tons of there's a lot of great action in here. And it gets pretty tough. So yeah, Binding of Isaac, it's number 2 on my list. And it's number 2 in your heart. Yeah, well, let's get to number 1. And before we get into number 1, let's go ahead and recount what our list is this year. But then to give you an idea of what we did last year, I'm going to go ahead and recount the 2019 list and then the 2020 list. So, the 2019 list was Number 10, Hotline Miami. Number 9, What Remains of Edith Finch. Number 8, Hellblade: Setsuna's Sacrifice. Number 7, The Untitled Goose Game. NumberSix, Limbo. NumberFive, Raging Loop. NumberFour, Crawl. NumberThree, Arms. NumberTwo, Resident Evil Revelations. And then NumberOne, Yomawari Night Alone. So now for the 2020 list, we have Number 10, Syrup and the Ultimate Sweet. Number 9, Hollow Knight. Number 8, Perception. Number 7, Creepy Tale. Number 6, They Breathe. Number 5, Bioshock 2 specifically. Number 4, Inmost. Number 3, Catherine. Number 2, The Binding of Isaac. And number 1 this year would be actually Night in the Woods, which does take place around like the one of the ensuing parts of this does take place around Halloween. So it does kind of fit in with that. And it does have a nice little creepy aspect to it. And there is some supernatural going ons in this platforming adventure game. In a way, it's not a platforming puzzle game like, say, Creepy Tale. It's more of a platforming adventure game in kind of like you could take a look at stuff like Secret of Monkey Island or Dysponia or some of those other ones, but you can jump in this. So I would say, though, that Night in the Woods is more or less about the existential terror of growing up in a small town in the Midwest, or in this case here, in a town which used to be kind of a mining town, and then when those closed, it's slowly fading away. I mean, they got rid of their version of a King Supers, and a chain moved over there. Like it's there's a part in here where you're going to like it's kind of like that part in the Midwest where stuff has just kind of faded a bit is the best way to describe it. And the main character, May, is plagued by like these dreams. In these dreams, she's like helping ghosts or she's breaking property or so. And then like in kind of a Stand By Me kind of moment in the game. There's a part where they find like a disembodied arm, which may belong to a kid that went missing around there. In fact, you also find out like most of this game, part of it might be just happening in the main character's head because she's had like a kind of a mental breakdown. And that's why she left college to go back to this little nowhere town where people, but pretty much like it's one of those things where if you're not a certain age, if you don't escape by a certain age from like these tiny little towns, you're kind of stuck there. And there's that feeling of being stuck. The main character kind of reconnects with her group of friends. Then she witnesses something happen on Halloween, then they're kind of trying to help her like investigate that, and eventually it leads to this whole thing that may have to do with some kind of horrifying eldritch terror and a cult that worships it inside this mine. Of course, that might also not be happening, but it could be. There's reality kind of blends itself a little bit there. There are little neat little mini games in there, like there's a really great little Diablo-esque game that you can play on her computer, as well as like a little Guitar Hero-esque mini game, and little other little things that are put in there. Um, and the main character, actually all of the main characters in this, like Greg and Angus, Bay, and May, they're not really good characters for the most part, but they're all like sad characters in a way. They're all people we've all known. If you grew up in a tiny little town where it kind of feels like nothing happens and no one escapes. And it's that thing also coupled with like really great character development, fantastic music, and a really good little story that kind of sticks with you. And you can replay it multiple times because like the first time you go through, you're probably not going to get certain little sequences with certain other characters. I mean, if you're going you like for example, you could choose to go to the that abandoned that kind of really sad closing down mall with a B, or you can go do quote crimes end quote with Greg, that type of stuff. Like, you can find out little stories about these, and to be perfectly honest, some of the backstory for the characters, particularly Angus, if you're familiar with this game, these are the backstories behind these are kind of heartbreaking, and they're based off of experiences from the three creators for this. Like the person who created the music for this music is really, really good in this game, and it's also a little bit tragic because um, one of the person who composed those was, well, one of the worst parts of 2020 in my opinion, was bullied into suicide by well, of all people, Chelsea Valkenburg, or Zoe Quinn rather. And I'm like, really? That's especially considering that there's no actual proof to what she said. So she got him kicked off of all sorts of little games. And then because like a lot of the mental issues that the three people that worked on this game have are reflected in the characters of that game. And it makes Night in the Woods, it's a really good game, but it's really bittersweet because of like what happened in the backgrounds of it. But it's on this list because one, it's a really good game. It's not particularly scary from a scary standpoint, but it is Halloween related. It takes place around Halloween. Part of the impending the I guess you could say the incident in it, the incident that sets things into motion happens on Halloween, and it's a really good game that people should try out. Kind of like how earlier games in here, like for example, Catherine has an amazing story to it. Yeah, although kind of a bit, um, hmm, yeah. And then like Bioshock 2 has a fantastic story to it. Creepy Tail ended up having a really good one to it. Hollow Knight has a good story if you're paying attention to the lore. It's a fun little story where, like, oh yeah, this is kind of a Metroidvania where you're playing as like a little bug hitting things with a nail, and then you realize no, this is actually more like Game of Thrones. But then, like stuff like Inmost has a really good story to it, and with Binding of Isaac, what you think is happening isn't really happening. Actually, this year our list is less about like jump scares or whatnot, but for that wonderful thing that horror can help you experience, which is sadness. A lot of the best horror happens to people who don't deserve to have have whatever happens in there happen to them. In things like Midsummer or Martyr or Hereditary, the characters in those, they don't deserve anything that happens to them. Or in the movie, say Us or Get Out, Lights Out, Dark Water, not the remake but the original one. Most of these things here are just very, very rarely do I really enjoy a horror movie where the main character deserves what happens to them. I would say that like Better Watch Out is one that's like that, or Gremlins is a good little horror movie like that. But stuff that's more horror for thinking, or more horror for like that feeling of sadness, like The Devil's Backbone or Pan's Labyrinth, those are the most affecting of those. Or even like Brightburn is a good one, in that like what happens in there isn't really the fault of the characters in it. It's just sometimes there's something that happens and you can't stop it. You can't do anything about it except to deal with the fallout from it, to deal with, oh my God, that happened. It's horrible. And we just have to keep living on. Which, come to think of it, that's what 2020 really is all about, isn't it? Well, happy Halloween, everyone. We might do another list like this before Halloween with another 10 games because, frankly, I have a list of over 80 plus games that didn't make it into this list or the previous list. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Hit that thumbs up, share button, that subscribe button, ring that little bell so you're notified whenever we have a brand new video here on Area DMG. And until next video comes out, you are now caught up. While you still live.
Morning, Maya.